Alright, so we're here with Dr. Ikeda. We're going to be talking to him about his class, MCB 428, Bacterial Pathogenesis. Dr. Ikeda, could you just introduce yourself and give a brief overview of the course?
Yeah, my name is Jack Ikeda, and I went to school at the University of California at Davis, got my PhD in microbiology. My area of study was microbial pathogenesis. I came here in about 2001 and taught a couple of classes in microbiology and molecular genetics. Now the class I'm going to talk about today is MCB 428, Bacterial Pathogens Lab. It's a lab class that's 2 credit hours. Students meet twice a week. This class is actually an advanced MCB lab for those that are majoring in MCB. And I started teaching this class in 2011.
Okay. Can you give a brief overview of what's covered in the course?
So, really brief. This course is sort of like a diagnostic lab. And you're given a sample and a case history of a patient that may have gotten sick. And you have to try to identify the pathogen that's causing the problem using microbiological techniques. So that's the brief overview of the class.
Okay. So what kind of background knowledge does a student need to bring into this course?
Yeah, so I strongly recommend that students follow the prerequisites for our course. And there's a prerequisite of MCB 300, which is the microbiology lecture. And I expect students who come into the course to know basic microbiology concepts. What is a bacteria and virus? What's the difference between a gram-positive and a gram-negative bacteria? Do you know how they grow and the metabolism that they undergo? Their genetics. So these are all basic things. And in 300, about half of the class right now is geared toward pathogens. So I would expect you to know things about pathogens and how they cause disease before you came into this lab. On a side note, 300 has some prerequisites, MCB 250, molecular genetics, and 252, cells, tissues, and development. Those are classes that MCB majors would have taken in the course sequence. But you should know those courses.
Okay. So how do topics covered in the course apply to current research or medical scientific advancements?
Yeah, so if you're going to work with bacteria, like in a research lab, you're going to have to know how to work with them and how to grow them up, how to stain them, how to look at them in the microscope, and handle them with aseptic techniques so that you don't contaminate others and yourself, and you don't contaminate the sample. So these are techniques that you would learn in the class, so if you're going to work with bacteria, all these techniques would be helpful.
Okay. So what are some of the experiments that a student might perform in this class?
Yeah, so like I said, it's like a diagnostic lab, and so you're given a sample that represents like a stool or urine, sputum, blood, and it's supposedly from a patient that's ill, and you're given a case history. And so the student would have to isolate the organism, the potential pathogen, and look at it, stain it, look at it, do biochemical tests to try to identify the pathogen. Sometimes there's these kits that identify specific pathogens, and you might use one of those. You might have to try to identify the strain of a particular species of bacterium that might help you in following an outbreak. You might have to do antibiotic susceptibility testing so that you can figure out which antibiotic would be useful, since antibiotic resistance is on the rise. So those are the main types of experiments you would do in this class.
Okay. So for students who have never taken an MCB lab or an advanced MCB lab, could you just go over generally what a lab practical is, and are there any throughout this course?
Yeah, we do give one lab practical exam. It's basically an exam taken in the lab to evaluate your laboratory skills. For example, we'll test you on how well you can streak plates to isolate the bacteria, and how well you gram stain. that's a common staining of bacteria, the gram stain, and how well you use the microscope. Also, we evaluate how well you can interpret the different biochemical test results. We do give a lab practical. The lab is broken down into different stations, and each student goes to a station, and they have like a couple of minutes at each station, and then they switch to the next station and answer the questions. So that's what the lab practical is about.
Okay. So are there any other MCB classes that go well with this course, taking them at the same time?
The microbiological course would be good. There is one, you don't have to take it at the same time, but there's a course called MCB 426 taught by Dr. Brenda Wilson, and that's a bacterial pathogens lecture, 3 credit hour lecture. Now, in that course, she focuses on virulence factors, how bacteria cause disease. So that's it's slightly different from this course, which is a laboratory course. That's more like a diagnostic lab. We do cover some virulence factors in this course, and it's hoped in the future that we might incorporate some more experiments related to virulence factors. But 426 is a good one if you want to know about bacterial pathogens.
Okay. So what should a student do if he or she is having trouble in your course?
Well, the first thing you should do is come see me, and either during the regular office hours or make an appointment to see me at a different time, and we can go over, what your problem might be, your concerns, where you stand in the course, and maybe what you're doing wrong and what you can do right to improve your grades in the course. So, you should come see me. First thing you should do.
We have time for one more question. What kind of advice would you give to students who are interested in your class but do not have the prerequisites?
Well, again, with the prerequisites, I strongly recommend that you take the prerequisites. For example, 300, MCB 300. If you haven't taken it, you should take it before you take my class. Possible that if you didn't take it, you may not do as well in the class. You may not get the grade that you want. You'll have to work harder to get the grade you want. So, again, I strongly recommend that you take the prerequisites before you take up my class.
Okay. Well, Dr. Ikeda, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome.